Hey, how you doing?
Well, it seems I've done it. And hopefully, this does not collapse. It's nearly done.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to Talk Hard. I hope you're doing well out there. It has been a crazy few weeks indeed, and we are here to talk hard with you tonight. It is a Chris Persia pick. That's right, Chris Persia. We did a poll. We kind of cheated a little bit and kind of threw a wrench into the normal routine and kind of asked everybody in chat to pick from a couple of outlier films and like have a Chris Persia pick. And he wasn't expecting that. He doesn't want to participate in that manner, but I threw him a wrench. He was participating. He came up with a couple of 40th anniversary type films, and we decided to go with Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, which is a film I really hadn't seen in a very, very long time. I know I've seen it in college, but I really remember seeing it as a kid. So kind of a cold open. We didn't really have a credit put together for this. Loki is under the weather, so please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. He's not been feeling well. And something about this film really resonated with Ironcaster, and he's not sure he's going to make it with us tonight. We'll see. All I can tell you is it is a credit to the film to have some weight and deal with loss and loss of a family member, that kind of thing. It can hit close to home. It can be a little rough to get through sometimes. So anyway, so if any of you are out there and want to join, feel free to give me a little nod. Let me know that. I'm more than happy to throw a link out there for some of you, especially if you are a member. And we will do that and talk about this movie a little bit. Well, with that, let me say hello to all of you in chat, starting with Chris Persia, hanging in there, helping wrench, helping to keep me in line, doing things. So, Pat, thank you so much for being with me and supporting me and the channel so much as a friend. I appreciate you, brother. And there he is, of course, from the Great White North himself, Chris Persia. Hail to Pops and Ironcaster. Yes. Hail to you, Chris. Thank you again for everything you do. Holding the fort down out there, that kind of thing. So, yeah. And yeah, Pat, thank you so much for that. Just trying to, let's do that. Let's get things out there. So kind of a cold open. Yeah. Not, again, for those of you who are missed out on it, there's it will become a member only video here soon, but there was a Pops live stream, just another impromptu video where me catch everybody up. Yes, this is in the farm. You're in my little makeshift office now where I work most of the time during the week at home now here. So this will become the Pops area probably until May. We'll probably change it up in May, get ready for Star Wars Day and do that kind of thing. So yeah. All right. A little bit cheated, only a little bit. Well, it hasn't happened yet. So, I mean, I would think after 2 years, we would have a Chris Persia picks. Like it seems silly not to. So hence I just threw in there, and you have to blame chat. I'm just saying. All right. Just saying. I have the mini posters for this. Oh, they're the only kind of creepy but interesting. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Gotcha. So, Greystoke is one of those two. Well, the funny part for me was it is not in screen caps, so I'm not sure about sharing a lot of images and stuff like that from this movie. I tried to pull it up to share, and that did not particularly go well either. So we'll see how that goes. We will play that up. The film for me, because it came out in 1984. My mom was a diehard Tarzan fan. She'd grown up on Johnny Weissmuller, who was an Olympian swimmer. He was a great Tarzan. He was tall. He was built. They kind of structured the entire show around him, living in the jungle with Jane, having cheetah, and all these different elements that I kind of grew up on as a Tarzan fan. So even into the 70s, Tarzan was a pretty strong IP and brand for marketing and things like that. So in addition to the Marvel and superheroes and Star Wars and like that, Tarzan was sort of like part of that as well. It was in the regular sort of like, I want to say family content, like or kids content, as far as those type of films or adventure things being out there and that kind of thing. So for me, this was a big deal when we wanted to go see this in the theater. My mom wanted to go see it in the theater. And I think that I, like most people, associate Tarzan with a lot more action and adventure than this film sort of delivers. This Greystoke is by far a drama first and foremost. So if you've never seen it, that's your first warning. Very, very well done. Princess Leia Rose is here. Hey there. Hope you're doing well. But yeah, if you did not know, this is the introduction to Christopher Lambert. Yeah, that's right. Christopher Lambert, his first film for Americans. He was kind of introduced to us in that way. And I think he does a magnificent job. There are several scenes or moments that I think really capture and foreshadow his sort of like film legacy, if you will, or what his reputation will be. He really does sort of capture enough of the elements that you get. He's running around without a shirt. He's muscular. He's got these eyes, and he's very talented and has a way with acting without having to speak dialogue, which was key for this version of Tarzan, who has very little vocabulary, and then grows to that vocabulary as the film progresses. So I thought that works pretty well. But the story is very sort of traditional in the sense of dealing with the castaway, sort of like shipwrecked royalty, right? His parents, and then following sort of like quite literally Tarzan as a child growing up among the apes. Now, they do a great job in the early part of the film to have a quick little shot with a chimpanzee accident, and the mother loses the baby and then carries around the deceased baby. And I think that was very interesting. And I think this is something that's been lost with modern filmmaking, because they used actors. Actors went through like ape training so they could pull off something this extensive. And this was done, again, this is in the 80s. This is 84. So we've been in the early 80s. This was filmed. And you compare that to at least doing some of that. They did use motion capture to bring the ape part to life. But as far as the actual training and having those movements and arm extensions and things like that, that was done as well with that modern Andy Serkis film series as well. But I was really impressed I was researching a little bit about there's about 7 or 8 actors who did that, do a lot of the different roles, things like that. I will say there are scenes that work very, very well. There's other scenes where I was like, ugh, does not age well, but not to the point where it ruined the film for me. I never felt like, even though I could tell it was a suit, or I could tell those were human eyes or things like that, I really never felt this was sort of like messed up, or that I was sort of like out of the loop of the experience, so to speak. I think all of that still worked very, very well for me. Let me see here. Lady Mist is here. Hey there. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for stopping by. But yeah, this was it was great to revisit it. I'd sort of been shocked by the 40-year thing, so that was kind of a cool little angle to sort of get with. So yeah, the first part of the film kind of progresses that way. It's Tarzan amongst the apes as a young boy. Tarzan is a teenager. There's the exploration of him sort of like going through the jungle, finding the tree house where his family had been, well, they had died. So they changed that through other more common Tarzan stories. The biggest one I would assume would probably be the Disney adaptation, because most people have seen that and not seen a lot of other previous Tarzan incarnations. I'm not massive enough readers to be able to speak to the original Edgar Rice Burroughs origin story. So if any of you guys want to speak to that, feel free to hit me up and let me know. But Zax is here. Hope you're doing well, brother. I hope you're doing well. That's good. Hail to you, brother. But yeah, I don't know that I don't think I like the fact of the ape killing the dad. So mom dies of malaria right after childbirth. And there's even comments made like, we don't even know exactly how to keep. Well, how the dad says he doesn't know how to keep him alive, but makes a comment about her milk dried up. When she immediately, when she's passing, the alpha male from the group of apes attacks, and that's how the husband dies, leaving John to be orphaned, who is saved by the Wakala, who is the mother chimpanzee who has been carrying around her deceased one, and she raises him up. Now, I will say there was a lot of care given, a lot of detail to. There was a lot of care and stuff given to how the apes would raise each other. So, they will drink water and then allow it to pour into the other one's mouth. The way they put food and stuff on their fingers, things that as humans we don't do, but it wouldn't necessarily kill you. So I think that was very interesting. So, only Tarzan movie I think I've ever seen was Brendan Fraser. Oh, Tarzan, huh? It's funny because I actually grew up and watched George of the Jungle cartoons. So for me, I actually raised my kids on that song. They knew who George was before that movie. And of course, Brendan Fraser running around in his slicked up muscle look that he had made everyone happy to go see that movie. My wife was thrilled. I just love the song and the silliness of that franchise. So, which works for me. So yeah, I enjoyed that. But I think I enjoyed what Disney did there. And you're not going to see me say this very often, but I like the idea that it would be the leopard, and then later he gets revenge on the leopard. Whereas in Greystoke, the panther sort of out there. The panther does get his friend, and it's sort of like, I want to say a coming of age, but it gives him sort of like the rise of leadership for the entire group of apes. I'm sorry I'm not pulling much up. I'm having trouble finding photos worthy of sharing from this part of the film. Most of the photos I'm finding are very low res. Like I said, this is not one that was in the motion cap website. So if you guys don't know, there's like a motion capture website where you can go and they have these stills from the movie. That one did not. Here's one of the shots. We'll pull this one in here real quick. So see, it's you can tell that there are humans in the suits, but I think it really works well. They use lighting. Obviously, it's a lot of physical location stuff. Now, I'm not saying it's not studio work. A lot of these scenes and shots were in studios, but they're done very, very well, extensively and everything is physical. It wasn't like they're using any special effects or anything like that. So all of this works well for that part of it, even though you do know some of the stuff doesn't quite. It's not quite as believable. Let's see what else we have on this. Yeah, this is the shot like we had earlier. That was the love scene we get later on in the movie. Oh, we could maybe show the trailer. Let's see how this will. Can you guys in chat keep me honest about whether or not this is buffering or not? So I'm not sure how this will go. Let me turn sound off here, and we'll kind of go through some shots. So yeah, this is the opening sequence with the shipwreck. So see how it does this. I can't, this will be a little bit of a trial and tribulation with this. And I got to be honest, some of this was sort of cut short in our final version. So the creators were very ambitious, and the studio wasn't having it. I find that very interesting. So there was an interview with the director, and there's a 2-hour and 40-minute cut of this version that has a lot more of young Tarzan, and it's a lot more violent. And that's not what they wanted. They wanted a PG film. So as far as I read, as my grandson has said to me, has said to us, according to my research, that's a buzzword in our house, is according to my research, because that's literally what this, preschool said. According to my research, that 2-hour, 40-minute cut is not available anywhere. And that's the one that I would really be interested to see. Is different because that's closer to the vision the director had with, I think, again, Ape World's more violent and flushing out a lot more of that development of Tarzan, because it does get jumpy. Like we jump from like little kid to suddenly being teen and rather athletic. And there's like a big jump to being a man. But you can see there's definitely a great care given here to really showcase their world and what we can see them have. There is Kala finding baby Tarzan and then trying to keep the other chimps and apes away. Look at how great the shot is, though. I mean, they did it so that her lips would protrude out and kiss. Like that's, again, 1980. You got to figure it's being filmed in 82, 83. That's a lot of care. That's a really great job. I believe it is Rick Baker who does the special. He headed up the special effects team. If you guys are not familiar with Rick, well, you are familiar with Rick Baker, even if you don't recognize the name. Rick Baker, of course, most famous for things like American Werewolf in London. So he is really, really beyond talented when it comes to, some of these type of films where he was able to just build models and come up with technology that will allow for a lot of movement and things like that. So to be able to do this, I think, was just a great testament to the talent of that time. So that's our first shots. And then again, we jump we jumped there. That was more like younger Tarzan before we get, yeah. So you can see that they just have a lot of shots to see that we jump to adult Tarzan. That's when he takes out the panther. So I think again that original version probably fills in a lot of gaps and makes this a more fluid and interesting story rather than having Tarzan sort of jump in age and that kind of thing. And again, you guys keep me honest in chat if we're having any problems buffering or anything like that. Let me think. So the early part of the film. So I mean, I guess is it faux pas to have to discuss the nudity in the first part of the film, because I think all of that is so genuine and believable, and this would be a major bone of contention in modern film. And this was a PG film. This is very innocent, and it's never done in any sort of like, skeevy way. Like I felt all of this was a little boy trapped in the jungle, and he's just growing up. And actually, it's kind of weird and abrupt that later on he has a loincloth just out of the blue. You're like, well, we know why, but I'm not sure it makes sense with the story on why he would. But in theory, all of that film would be kind of something they wouldn't do today, and they would mess it up if they did do it. Again, and for those of you who are going to ask about the Alexander Skarsgård version, I remember seeing it and being massively either, I want to say disappointed, unimpressed. Just like, yeah, didn't like that. And I don't think I've ever watched it again. After watching this, it makes me never want to watch it again. I'm like, this is good enough. This is sort of like, it feels like a dramatic adaptation of a book, of an IP that's been around before, we were all born. It is sort of a legend rather than an action film, which is, I think, what studios would want. Like, I think people would want with Tarzan is kind of what Disney gave them. It's like they gave them sort of an action film for kids with some sweetness and romance and stuff in it. And that watered down version is what studios would want, and not something that Edgar Rice Burroughs had created. So, yeah. So, yeah, no desire to see that film. This didn't change that perspective on things. So there you go. It's interesting too. Again, sorry if I keep bringing the issues up, but I'm trying to make sure. Let's see. That I don't have any buffering or things like that. So the first time you slide down the wrong tree, you get a loincloth. Zach says, very good point. Very good point, my friend. It's a good point because, and there's one scene that is not, we didn't have any stills here in the trailer. So maybe it'll come up with as we move through the trailer a little bit more, but there's a scene where he's learning to throw a rock. So his hand movements, he walked on his knuckles. He's only been trained by the apes. So I'll remove this for the moment. He's learning to throw the rock, right? So he's learning more dexterity and use of his hands and more athleticism than he would have as a pure ape. So it would make sense too, as he's learning, like with the knife, he learned very quickly, like that cuts himself, right? So it would make sense that you're right, Zach. I know we may have come at this as with maybe as jest, but in theory, that does make sense because it seems like his cognitive ability, his adaptation is going to be faster and more diverse than pure mimicry, which is what the apes and how the apes are being portrayed. Hence, how he was portrayed as this amazing mimic, because that's all he was exposed to. He didn't really develop any of these other areas of the brains, other talents and skills. It was only this one arena like the apes are great at. So therefore, as these other things would emerge, he would probably think outside the box. Thank you, Zach. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Hey, DJ Ronnie G is here as well. Hey, brother. Great to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, I think that was an interesting element I wanted to touch on briefly was that. So, all right, let's pull that back up again. Let's see where we're at in the trailer. Now I will say they do a PG version of this, right? Because we could easily see, we could easily have seen the panther into the group becoming a lot more carnivorous. Is that the best way to discuss how bloody that scene would actually be? There was a part where I think Tarzan throws like a leg or something to someone. So And again, if any of you guys want to join in, that's fine. Loki, again, is ill. Ironcaster had some stuff that's kind of come up surrounding the film. I can just say this, that there is times when you watch a movie and you're in certain places in life where things can just hit you in the feels, and some things like that can happen. So he may pop in. Who knows? We'll see. Look, the Cap is here. Hey, brother. Hope you're doing all right, JT. Great to see you, my friend. But yeah, if any of you guys want to pop in, let me know. I'd be more than happy to take a partner for a little bit for sure. All right, so I think that kind of where I'm at. Ian Holm. All right, man. I tell you what, this guy is a goat. He is a very underrated performer in so many ways. I think he kills it in the scenes that he's in. This is him when he John is off to England. I think the biggest thing for me with the stuff in England is the sets and costumes and all the things that you would expect from sort of like Oscar worthy drama, which is what that's kind of the lane this film I think is going for, is Oscar worthy drama, not again action film, those kinds of things. It was nominated for a few awards. I think it was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, which is Ralph Richardson, which was the Lord, the grandfather. Best Adapted Screenplay, Robert Towne headed that up. Rick Baker, of course. I don't think it won any of our Academy Awards. I think it won the British for the makeup part, the hair, the Rick Baker team, and that kind of thing. Some technical award, things like that. But yeah, I think that when you looked at this stuff, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, this so and really the way he's introduced to Tarzan. So he is the only one that survived. So he's on the science exposition with these other guys. They're hunters. It's sort of like the play on the Clayton character that's in the Tarzan cartoon, with just being the blind hunter, the mean, cruel stereotype. It was pretty extreme. Fair enough. They're attacked by the tribes people, and everyone dies. He takes a couple of arrows. I think he takes a couple, but I know for one, it gets him pretty bad. What I really like about that sequence is the natives here. Let me take that down. So the natives are coming after him, and he hides up in like a tree ridge, and there's like a divot there. And as somebody who kind of lives in the woods, an area like that, those actually exist a lot, and they will kind of flatten themselves out as the water collects in there, and they could be deep enough for you to kind of like hide down in and kind of like dodge other people and that kind of thing. So I think that was great, because that's kind of where he ends up. He survives these natives, and then that's where Tarzan finds him. That's interesting. It was an interesting dynamic for sure. So I enjoyed that. So yeah, Ian Holmes yeah, legend, totally awesome. R.I.P. Yeah, Dadman's here. Hey brother, hope you're doing well. Love what you do over on your channel. If you guys are not checking him out, he does some fun stuff for sure. Yeah, so I appreciate all you guys hopping in here and hanging out with me. So all right, let me jump back into this trailer a little bit, get some more footage to talk about, especially before we get to more of the England part, the drama part. Here, let me share this scene. So again, when he's younger and he goes into the treehouse, he finds his dad's knife. He doesn't know what it is. And it's funny too, when the other there's a scene later on where the apes find the group, and they have like the gun, and you see him, the gun. Oh my gosh, you're just waiting for the bad thing to happen. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Anyway, again, filmmaking of the 80s, filmmaking of the past, it's the lost art, right? Let's do this. Let's have him in the water. Let's have some diversity of environments, some challenges and physicality, and things that make the scene more dynamic, rather than just like, oh, we're just going to jockey for some moments, and then we're just going to have a quick death, or we're going to have some quick moment, and things that deliver. And I think it's almost like the trials and overcome, and conveying victory through that type of struggle, rather than just some sort of straight up thing. So let's see. Oh, Penny. Hey, Penny. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for everything, Penny. Appreciate you. And Matt is here. Hey, brother. This is probably my third favorite Tarzan movie. Oh, interesting. I'd love to know what they are in your order, my friend. Yeah, I talked about that early in the show in case any of you missed it. A little about kind of where I'm at on my Tarzan history with my mom in particular gets credit for that. So, but yeah, it's I really enjoyed that element of these sequences that they never shied away from things that are interesting. Again, with the way they approach the apes, they weren't just there is a couple of shots of the baby chimp. So there's a couple of shots of a baby chimp. Here, let me pull that down for a second. So if you look closely, there's a mother holding like a baby chimp, and it's clearly a mannequin, a stuffed thing. It's not for real. But other than those shots, most of those scenes were also pretty dynamic. They were really well thought out, very well choreographed and scripted so that it could kind of, make things work for you. But all right, well, with that, let me bring in Ironcaster. He's going to join me here. Hey, brother, how you doing?
Oh, I got a nice shower in. I had to go kind of wash off all that jungle juice.
Ironcaster literally just finished Greystoke this afternoon. Lots of chaos, of course, and the emotional heartstrings, of course. But a heavy film, way heavier than I had remembered. But so I will look forward to hearing your thoughts on that as well. And before I get to that, Chris, you answer my question. Yes, Matt, tell us what are your two for sure. Let me know. All right, so Ironcaster, so this is the first time you've seen this movie, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, first impressions.
Well, going into it, I certainly wasn't expecting the much more heavy-handed drama approach, or necessarily getting quite so much of the British side of the story. I did actually I liked a lot of the work with the monkeys, all the actors, the extras. That's absolutely beautiful. Seeing, I'm like, there's a couple moments in there where I'm totally buying. Like, yeah, these could be some actual gorillas.
Yeah, there's certain. I think I was just saying that too. There is a couple shots of like a baby chimp that looked pretty bad. And there are a few shots where you can tell there's someone in there, or it didn't quite work. But I don't think it ever got so bad, or was never distracting, or it never took you out of the film. It's like, oh no, it's real. I never ever felt that. It didn't, even though, again, 84. So it just never felt that way for me. So it sounds like you kind of agreed that at least with whatever shortcomings there were never enough to damage sort of like the perspective of the film.
Well, one of the nice things with this movie is the character is so ingrained into the pop culture that, we don't really, there's certain elements we don't really need to just spend so much time on. Like, for example, the parents on their ship. We don't necessarily need to see them having a big, long journey and cruise through the ocean, getting down to like the coast of Africa, because we know eventually, well, they have to crash land here so that we can get Tarzan into the jungle.
Right. Yeah, it seems pretty straight away. It's rich people get on a boat goes crashing. The only thing that kind of made me laugh about seeing this again, I don't know. I told you before we started, but I know I watched it in college. I don't know when, but I know I saw it in theaters. But it was kind of funny seeing the captain, because the captain is there on the beachhead, and he's just like, "It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault." It turns out that the captain, that's the same actor that plays in Harry Potter. That's the uncle. He shows up later in
Uncle
the bar
Vernon.
Scene. Yeah, he's Uncle Vernon. Yeah, he shows up later in the bar scene. Oh, look, you got the screen cap. Let me pull that up. There you go. Yeah, there he is. There's Uncle Vernon. Uncle Vernon is he shows up in the bar briefly. He allegedly goes for help and doesn't really go for help. He ends up in the bar later that we see, so he didn't get very far.
Yeah, no, Uncle Vernon's there on the coast. Like, the best part I love about the west coast of Africa, no mail.
All right, I was really into Tarzan for a long time. I have all the movies except the stupid Disney ones. I don't hate the Disney Tarzan. I'm sorry. It's actually one that I have enjoyed with my kids, and I don't hate it. I know it's not of this type of gravitas and dramatic theme, but I actually is. Yeah, Chris Persia. Yeah, and you unknowingly, ticked off another film that Ironcaster had not seen. Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, over the week, it kind of got me thinking just quite how many other literary classics have been adapted to the big screen that might be worth going and looking at. And I was kind of looking over a list like well, there's like what Zorro, and there's a few other ones.
Yeah, Three Musketeers,
Yep.
Zorro's comes to mind. There's other things that have been adapted like once, but not necessarily multiple times. So, it might be interesting to, take a look at that. I would add Robin Hood to that list, maybe looking at Robin Hood. So there's some things like that would be kind of fun to do, a talk hard on or something like that. Or maybe we could do something more like our favorite Robin Hood movie. Because for Robin Hood, they're probably the most of, right? That'd be the most. Zorro has kind of been, well, is there a new Zorro TV show or something like that? I haven't given it any time, but I think Polly's been covering it over on Latino Slam, but I didn't watch it. Things like that. There haven't been a lot of those yet, right? But
I mean,
give it a shot.
That might be a good idea to reach out to him, see if he wants to come on and talk about Zorro as a whole, because that seems to be up his alley.
Maybe, yeah. Matt's answer is Tarzan's 3 challenges and the first Weissmuller film, Tarzan and the Ape Man. Yeah. Johnny Weissmuller is what I grew up on. So that was my intro tonight. Was my mom grew up on him as an Olympian. And at that time, again, remember, you talk about like the 60s into the 70s, into my childhood, Olympians were treated as like American icons and American heroes. So for Johnny Weissmuller, he was sort of that. He was an American hero who transitioned into film, and it becomes something that everybody liked. So, yeah, that's what I grew up on.
The version of like the character I most associate with that always kind of comes to mind for me is, of course, the George of the Jungle, the Brendan Fraser film. That's where I always go when I think of like, Tarzan. And
that's what Bobby had said earlier. And I'm like, well, that was actually a parody cartoon. I grew up on that as a cartoon. It was an actual parody cartoon. I so many people when that movie was happening, because I remember I'm sure I was right for one of the websites by then. I didn't even know that, so I'm making all of these like song references and things. Like my kids grew up on this cartoon. I don't know where we found the DVD somewhere back then. I don't even know that we still have it. So it seems like the DVD they probably would have wrecked because they did watch it a lot during that era. So we talked a little bit about Ian Holm, but I wanted to ask your thoughts. I mean, to me, chews up and steals every scene. Thought he's just fantastic.
He's an absolute delight.
Yeah, I mean, he's faking an accent, it's so good. Zach said, such a legend. I couldn't agree more. I forgot he was in this movie. It was such a treat seeing him on screen.
The thing I like about it is, even though he is from this very similar background with all the aristocracy, the very British sentimentality, in many ways there, he's also an outsider to them as well. So he gets
there's several moments where he's judgmental of them, are they? Right.
Oh yeah. And it works as such a great stand-in he works as such an amazing stand-in for the audience in those scenes. Getting to look at them and say, well, to say, you're no better, at least, with the bestial nature of, out in the jungle, they're honest. Whereas these aristocrats will hide behind these facades and lie to your face. Is the mockery?
Yeah, you're right. Because there's several scenes, right? Because I was thinking mostly about the jungle part where he was like, because there's like a little bit of like voiceover as the narrator of almost like he's like writing in a journal, almost like journal entry, yep. And he's like discussing like, these hunters just appall me basically because they're just these bloodthirsty Neanderthal morons, whatever. And then later with the aristocracy, he's always right there to take John's side in those situations and try to comfort him. And yet at the same time, he's the only one until Jane finally comes around to it. It kind of knows he's probably never really going to be tamed. He's probably never going to not be some sort of beast in all of this. So I just wanted to briefly, there's a couple of shots in the trailer. This is their filler, guys. This is the equivalent of their filler. Are actually these like landscape shots. It's just these beautiful shots.
They could be using they could be using about a dozen movies.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think they went on location for some of this. So there's the waterfall shot, which I think they did enhance a little bit, maybe with a matte painting or something like that. But this waterfall would become like a landmark for the film, things like that. Now you knowing more from Highlander and stuff, of course. So, what is your thoughts on Christopher Lambert?
I lost him in the role. Like I was buying this. Like I'm looking at, like, it's not just what in the jungle section anyway. He's Tarzan. He is of these apes. He is a beast in his own right. Yeah, so I'm right there for it. I want to see him like ripping the leg off this panther and throwing it to the other apes to, assume his position as the leader of them.
I agree. Adega, what's going on, brother? Yeah, he would have seen that probably about the same time I did. We probably would have saw this in theaters as kids. Stunts. Oh, I didn't even get to stunts yet. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Shadow Complex says the stunts of this movie really impressed me. The kids and the ape costumes swinging from trees, no wires, maybe even safety nets or fall. Well, I assume they had some of those things, but they were done so strategically. Again, this is the brilliance of the filmmaking of the era, right? We talk about this so many times on Talk Hard, especially amongst ourselves, it's like, well, how are we going to do that and pull that off? You know what I mean? It's very strategic. Whereas now CGI is this crutch. Oh, we could just CGI this in, and we can just green screen, and we can just put motion capture, and we can just do these what have really become the most expensive, cheap effect I've ever seen. It's like they spend so much money coming up with something that just looks terrible. Whereas these people they got acrobatic kids and acrobatic performers to make it work. What were your thoughts when you saw little kids swinging on the vine like that? I forgot how cool it was. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I was totally lost in it. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that, oh, these are kids. These are this little kids swinging from the vines. I'm like, yeah, that's Tarzan. That's what Tarzan does. Like I'm in a way, I'm sitting up. I'm waiting for it. I'm not even thinking about. I'm watching a movie. This is gonna see some adult pretenders like looking like they're swinging around on these vines. No, this is Tarzan. It makes perfect sense. I'm starting to think about, like, well, the way they swing, he's gonna grab it, he's gotta come back just so we can cut. I'm like, that would make sense,
doesn't it? I know. Actually, I had the exact same thought because, again, haven't seen this in so long. I was sitting there watching it, going, "Wow, yeah, a real vine. That would be how you would have to do it." And I have to be honest, if you've ever tried to swing on a vine, commenting for a friend, if you lose your momentum at all, you are done. It is so hard to hang on a vine because there's just not a lot of texture and stuff like that. I mean, it's just different than a rope. You can really grab onto a rope. You can hold on. You can pull yourself up. You can move around a little bit more. It seems like with vines, man. Yeah. So I'd say I've tried. Oh yeah. So the shot of Christopher Lambert probably was Penny. I like him. Matt makes an honest and very valid point too. Lambert's very good. Not speak English. He's okay at best in English. Yeah, he knows very little English. This is a man. This is his first film, even with Highlander. McLeod's dialogue is very limited because the actor's vocabulary is very limited. So,
maybe that's why I liked him so much in the role when he's in the jungle, when he's not talking.
Yeah, I agree with that. No, I think it's a very fair assessment. I'd be shocked if he would even disagree with that assessment because he just knows. So let me see if we get to some other elements here real quick. So the one thing I will say, though, there is it's confusing in that if you look at the script or you look at a lot of the elements about the film itself, Cupjack and Silverbeard, even the friend. So they all have names. So they really did have a lot of details about the different apes, but I'm not sure a lot of that comes out to the audience. There's just apes. You start to learn which ones are which, but again, if you've never seen this before, and if you didn't know that ape's name is Cupjack, you wouldn't know that because it doesn't really come up, does it?
No, I mean, there's some of the names I did not know. We're kind of in a way similar to what we would do with Halo. I'm starting to kind of look at them, giving them little names.
Yeah.
For example,
Silverbeard is his name, even though that kind of makes sense.
Well, the one I was kind of calling him Caesar because he reminded me of like that character from the Planet of the Apes films, which I have to imagine was part of the inspiration there. It's kind of tying into
if Rick didn't just directly pull. Actually, I think I've heard Rick Baker talk about it. I think some of his early teenage stuff was like ape costuming. Like some of the stuff he did as a teenager because of his love of makeup and stuff like that was like, ape type creatures, or even if it wasn't an actual ape or gorilla, it was like ape like stuff, like a monster that looked, that kind of stuff. Because it's an easy suit for someone to wear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was one thing I thought was, but yeah, I think that where's the shot? Right here.
Actually, it's a little janky and I'm a little short notice, but I do have some screenshots I can bring up.
Okay. I wanted to just point out that I said earlier about him having these eyes and be able to act without dialogue and things like that. This is Christopher Lambert's strength. This is why a lot of his career, a lot of the films and things like that to me don't work or don't age well, is he's trying to have, he has a lot of presence to him and a lot of ambiance to him. When you start adding the dialogue and things like that, it doesn't always go well. So let me pull that down real quick and let me say hey to Connie. I seen this one, the thing about theater. Yes, Connie, me too. Great. Didn't know you were around my age. That's awesome to know. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so there are scenes and shots and angles that work better than others, but they did a good job of making us all understand at least the 4 or 5 main apes, because we know there's several more in the movie. There's tons of others that are in the tribe, if you will. I don't know what the group of apes are called. If it's a clan or a tribe or what it is.
A
family,
band, maybe?
for sure, definitely. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I love the immersion. Like they really did a great job of like putting us in like chimpanzee culture of like the way they would feed and eat and preen each other. Even when he finds Silverbeard at the end of the movie in the cage, he starts preening him. He leans over, he's picking at his hair, and then he leans over and kind of like nibbles at him, which would be like what you would do to preen. I thought that was really, really smart. Really, really smart.
Which, that was another great little scene there that, it got me, but not in quite some ways as the grandfather moments.
Yeah, I didn't hit that up yet because I wanted to let you kind of lead into when you want to talk about Grandpa, because that was definitely definitely emotional if you're dealing with anything like that in your life, because it's done so well because of I think because their relationship is rooted entirely in familial love. You know what I mean? As far as we'll get that. You get to a screenshot or something like that, and we can talk more about it.
I can pull some stuff up.
Yeah. So I'll jump to this because just to have this real quick. So Andy McDowell, I don't get this. So someone else, can you guys in chat, maybe Chris, you guys, I couldn't figure out why they dub Glenn Close. There's things I saw that Glenn Close redubbed all of her audio, and I don't understand why that happened. She's a fine enough actress. It works okay for the film. I've seen her in other stuff. She was exactly the same as she always is. I don't think there's anything that was really terrible about this film compared to other films. But I saw like she had done the dubbing, and I don't know why that happened. So does anyone know why she was so bad they had to redub her? So I didn't get that. Did you see anything like that?
I didn't even pick up on it. Like I saw that was in the trivia, but for the life of me, I couldn't even pick it out. So I guess that's credit to Glenn Close for being able to get it just right.
Yeah. What do you think about the love affair part? Was it believable enough for you?
Well, the thing with there was a lot around sort of the British stuff I kind of had in some ways had some issues with. But in the case of the love triangle, it felt like a fascinating kind of approach into things.
Okay.
John, or as we would better call him, Tarzan, is just this wild animal who they've attempted to civilize. And here we are with among all these civilized men that are so unlike Tarzan, that where it's expected to be these very repressed and kind of self-controlled individuals who dare not show a bit of emotion. Otherwise, I dare say, but I dare say, boy, I may just have to pop you once.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. That's in the bar scene, right? Okay, so in the bar scene, the way they're acting, and then the one guy has to get popped or whatever, and it's just such a that was weird because that part did not age well. I did not get that really. I didn't really have any real emotional response to any of that. It was just kind of off putting. So,
Well,
yeah, they're
the
correcting
thing with
my here.
that,
So the shrewish of apes, and then Matt says that's the one of the archaic terms, but Burroughs uses troop in some of his novels. So thank you guys for that. Yeah.
I mean, there were some things with the bar scene I actually did like when they are coming out of the jungle, and these civilized men surviving in the jungle are trying to hold themselves up, are trying to hold on to just these little elements, these little shreds of who they are. Remember who we are. Don't let nature run over you. You have to be firm. And here's what someone who should be of their own, who's come in and he's, I dare say you've gone savage.
You know what was weird? The only reason this didn't I talked briefly before about the 2 hour and 40-minute cut. What the director's cut would have been. As far as we know, it doesn't exist, but that's what he's talked about it in an interview or two. And I wonder if there's a little bit more to some of this, because this doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a bunch of barflies with their made up rules and how they want to live, giving a dude that's literally wandered in from the jungle a bunch of grief for not having a shirt on and whatever. And it was just, I don't know. It's just, everything about this kind of was just clunky. I use that word. I don't really know a better way to explain it. It just seems like maybe there's a scene or extension of a scene that's not in it that kind of makes this feel like it makes more sense. It just kind of feels all very rushed and forced, like it just needs to happen. So
see that's where I actually disagree. This I really liked, because here they are trying to attempt to civilize these savages by their accounts, where this is an outpost on this coast of Africa. And so here they are, all neatly dressed with all of these Africans around them, waiting on them, who are made out to be just the faintest hint of tame, like pets.
Okay.
And here he comes in from the wilderness, just this complete wreck of a man. You're supposed to be like us. You sir need to hold on to your dignity. That is to be expected of you.
I would expect. Okay, I 100% agree with you. I just think this would have made more sense if he actually had time to, get some decency. He literally just staggered into the, you know what I mean? So that's all I meant. Like, yeah.
No,
anyway,
I totally get it. I totally get it. I see there's a humor in it, because
yeah.
Here they are expecting him to hold on to that, even though he just walked in from the jungle.
Okay. All right. All right. So, Chris,
and in fact,
I never heard this about Andie MacDowell. Perhaps her British accent wasn't up to. Well, I don't think Glenn Close brings a British accent either. I don't think it's really much of a British accent, really much at all. So, all right, go ahead, Ironcaster.
Well, say the thing is, like in that scene when Tarzan's walking, when him and Tarzan are walked up, Tarzan's wearing clothes, and he's the one who's like still all shredded and tattered.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Pat says that Andie MacDowell had like a Southern accent. No, that makes sense, because she does have that. Well, and we all know, like, Andie MacDowell doesn't really. Okay, is it a hot take? Maybe. I can't stand giving actresses the faux credit they deserve of being great actresses when Andie MacDowell basically just plays the same character in every single movie. Andie MacDowell doesn't have like a massive range or anything for me to like give her a lot of accolades about. She's pretty much the same. It's just Andie MacDowell showing up, whether it be Groundhog Day or 4 Weddings and a Funeral or Greystoke. It's just Andie MacDowell. So yeah, that's just how it is. So all right, that's fair enough. It would make sense that they don't. So. And this is Matt expounding on what you were saying, Ironcaster. Them civilizing John is more or less the opposite of the first novel, where Tarzan mostly civilizes himself. Okay, I don't. Okay, so I only thing I'll say, Matt, is at least they tried to make Ian Holm's character more like a guide, and a guide that is always impressed by Tarzan. Like you never get arrogance from his character. Like, oh, I taught him. I know Tarzan or whatever. He never comes across that way at all. He always comes across as sort of like in awe of Tarzan, right? Captain Philippe. Is that a fair assessment, Ironcaster?
Yeah, no, I like it. I like Jane's character here because here she is, this American she's the American being brought into British society, as in a way similar to Tarzan is sort of this outsider that we're allowing to persist among us. However, she's a lady, so we'll allow her to keep her, much like many of our other fine specimens.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. Shadow Complex. Yeah, she is American. She's a ward to the grandfather when we see her as an adult. Things like that. So, all right, Penny's headed out to do some work there in the kitchen. Good luck, Penny. Hang in there.
Bang a couple together.
Yes, do it. See, I wasn't going to try to bash on Andy McDowell being bad or anything like that. I just thought it was weird. This is massive dubbing. But I think probably Pat's assessment is probably best that it's not really a hard Southern accent, but enough of that American Southern. It's just something there that probably he didn't resonate well, and he was hired going close to dub it. So, all right. Now we get to it. Grandpa, Ralph Richardson, obviously was nominated for Academy Award Best Supporting Actor. Film's dedicated to him because he had passed by the time the film actually hit theaters. First off, the setup for this role comes with the one little line where the other guy, that kind of like the equivalent of a villain, the antagonist of the film, is the snarky British guy, and then
Charles
about questioning who he would be or whatever. He's like, no, if he's a Greystoke, I'll know when I see him. And it was all immediate. And you could see how Tarzan may have some trepidations, but it's that grandfatherly love that they give you, and it's beautiful. This film is tremendous in that regard.
One of the things I liked, especially with the grandfather figures, in this sort of revisiting with him now as this elder, sort of when we're reintroduced to him here, he's in bed, he's being made up because he's being told your grandson is alive. Mm-hmm. So in part of his preparations for that, he's getting ready to give himself a shave. He dips his brush into his coffee. So you get to see he's this bit of an odd sort within this rigid society. And I really like that.
Yeah, they didn't shy away from showing someone that's in some sort of mental and physical decline that is reminiscing about there's several lines with him thinking that he's his son, thinking that and I actually think he says it himself. So, I keep thinking you're my son. I keep thinking he's my son, So it adds a layer. Again, I don't know, Matt, you've talked a little bit about the books. Maybe any of you guys are familiar enough with the novels to know if this was sort of an element to Tarzan coming into that British culture or not. But I like that a lot because I thought it felt like it gave the film a lot more weight. Because this was a great moment of some levity where he's reading off the accomplishments of the mug. I don't even know what they were. Do you remember?
I cannot remember.
Yeah, it was some sort of like long jump or something. And it was sort of like, and then the grandpa basically just goes, who cares? It doesn't even matter. So Tarzan's looking on with like this eagerness and intenseness, like it's going to be some sort of like moment of inspiration or insight. And it's just some trivial nonsense that's on a cup. And I thought it was great. And it just, movies don't feel real like this very often anymore. I don't know. You talked about it before we started. It's just the emotions get stirred up, and it's because it feels real. It felt so natural.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't have to be part of this to understand everything that's going on here. To see that, that in a way they're held down and kind of so firm in their ways to have Tarzan, this literal Beast Man being brought in among them, put into a literal monkey suit.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yeah, it's it's funny because he doesn't really feel. There are moments where he's getting increasingly uncomfortable in the suits in the he'll fidget with the tie, he'll loosen the tie. If I went back and tried to take notes, I bet that was done progressively in the film as he's becoming more into his Tarzan identity and away from his Greystoke heritage. But I think Lambert is just doing a great job. He does a great job of pulling off every element you can imagine. Hysterical Tarzan, who's upset at emotional moments that make sense. He's passionate and trying to be, the ape man you would expect him to be with Jane. He has rage and sadness. It's just everything you could possibly imagine. It's just all done perfectly well. This is a really underrated performance by Lambert.
Oh, it is beautiful. The one thing I didn't really care for is when we get that jump from Africa to England, it seems like almost a night and day performance where we almost forget in many ways that he is Tarzan. And
there's no. Let me ask you this, because again, this might fit into what you're saying. For me, there has to be massive time jumps between some of these elements in the film, but we never are really told what they are.
Right. Well, you have to figure there's probably going to be a few months that have passed, but still, you figure to try to acclimate Tarzan, who's grown up in the jungle, into the ways of this society. It really should take a lot longer than just like a 3 to 5 month boat trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because them in the jungle, him learning some English, was 10 months, and really after 10 months, he was mimicking so quickly he'd be further along. Then when you go from what we see at the bar when he ends up on the beach to ending up in London, you're like, it'd be a massive amount of time. Anyway, I did say I like this scene only because the grandpa goes, yeah, I don't like spoons either, and just starts drinking it like that. I'm like, that's freaking great, man. It's a boss move, man.
But even this, you get to see those little hints of what I was saying with like the others there that look like they're just waiting to mock him and find ways to poo-poo upon him for not being good enough, for being just this,
totally agree.
This little quirky, for being just this quirky little intricacy that was brought along to entertain them for an evening, kind of like in Dinner for Schmucks when they had the whole dinner with the idiot dinner.
Yeah, this sort of like smarmy looking down their nose at you trope has been used in countless movies and entertainment. And here the grandfather gives him cover early in the movie, but the moment later on when the grandfather does pass and now it's his problem. This has all been set up of what he'll be faced to deal with, right? So I like that. Yeah. Matt says the whole thing with Tarzan spending time in England before rejecting his heritage is not in the novel. I don't think there is any in this film. I think this is not. He's born in the jungle and then comes in. So I don't know if that lines up with you, Matt, or not. But once he finds out about his heritage, he chooses to cancel it, return to the jungle. Yep, exactly what Greystoke does as well.
And that's what makes it interesting with this film. That's one of the things that makes it so interesting with this film is the way that they set it up that, it's expected, like he clearly, this is where he ought to be. This is how this is the way things are. And his fate is already resigned, that it's expected that he must stay upon us because we are civilized men.
Yeah. And I think they make it even a little more complicated or deep by adding the speech from Grandpa about trying to keep all of the land together and all the property together. Like most of the other lords and I'll say royalty have sold off like tracts of land, but he's kept the entire estate together. So they actually are implying the Greystokes are like uber wealthy because of that, and that would be his obligation as the heir is to try to do that. And instead, he sets all that aside to be who he really is. He's the ape man. He has to return to be Lord of the Apes. Yeah. By the way, yes, Pat, deep cut reference there. Does this guy have any Grey Poupon? For those of you who don't know, wish I had that trailer handy, Pat. We would play it right now. Do not have it, But yes, that trailer is phenomenal. That is a old school commercial right there. Yeah, super good. Oh, Conceal It. Oh, sorry, I missed. I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on, man. I'm sorry to tell you. Ape in the Zoo, grandfather movie. I'm not complaining. I love this movie though. Yeah, I get you. What did you think about the mimicking thing? So I'm interested to hear your take on it. As a first time film watcher of this movie, what do you think about the animal sounds and stuff?
I mean, it's a fun little quirk of the film, but it gets a little obvious that in some cases where they're just like kind of in post, we're adding in a sound effect. That is, we didn't have someone on standby to ape the sounds.
Yeah, I thought it was extremely distracting. I mean, I think that the first time or so, and him doing it on command, I thought was fine, but they're just setting it up to try to do a callback to it. But it sounds, it's done in post. It's totally dubbed, and it's so overused, and it's so it doesn't feel natural at all. It doesn't feel like someone trying to make a grrr sound. It's obviously just a recorded version of a leopard or something. I couldn't agree more. I thought it was like something that was not a bad idea for them to go for, but I thought the execution was a little bit shorter than they probably would have thought. So, all right,
I do feel like it's something you could have got away with in a much earlier film. Like if we go back a couple of decades, that would have been a little more okay to get away with. Like it's like a 1940s Tarzan movie. We're going to do these sorts of things where we're just trying to tell a good story. And, it's kind of hard. We don't have the ability to do a lot of the special effects we could now, even with the 80s.
I think that everybody associates Tarzan more with the apes and communicating to animals and that kind of thing. I don't think that meant he can imitate everything he's ever heard, or he can imitate, because he even does the human jokes. Like he starts imitating, the other humans at the table. I was all right. It wasn't great, but it was, I don't know. It's one of the elements that worked the least for me in this film. So, Tarzan means white skin. Okay, very cool to know. I actually wish that there had been a Tarzan reference and maybe use white skin as a name or something like that. But from Ian Holm's character, that would have also worked as a way of putting it out there. So, yeah. All right. Okay, so do you want to talk about the grandfather thing a little bit deeper, a little bit more?
Yeah, we can talk about it a little bit. I feel like I've had a chance to kind of
decompress,
get through it a little bit. Yeah. This, oh my gosh, this hit me so hard. I had to stop the movie. I had my little hanky out.
So the movie
bawling my eyes out.
The movie sets up that grandfather is basically, he is the dad. He is the everything you can imagine is the mentor to Tarzan / John. He has this thing about when he was a kid, he would ride the serving tray down the stairs. So once he has this big, long Christmas Eve event, he has this big speech about his family and never seeing his family again or whatever. But this year it's been so great because he got his grandson back. He refers to him as his son, but it's his heir who he hopes will be betrothed someday. And he looks over at Jane. He feels like his life has been fulfilled. The speech is basically, I'm good now. I'm good. And he gets on this tray and then it goes sideways. And it goes sideways in such a tragic way. I couldn't agree more, Ironcaster. I didn't remember any of this. I did not remember any of it. I did not know this was coming. So I can't imagine how you felt, my friend.
It's something I've been kind of dealing with at home. My grandfather is still here, but it's kind of one of those topics that sort of come up. And so seeing it play out here, I'm watching it play out. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm about to start losing it. And then like about about a good 15, 20 seconds go by. I start feeling the quivers going on. I'm like, oh, yep, there it goes. I lost it.
Yeah. I said, and I don't want to take away from anything here, but it shows that a movie's done something right. I mean, guys, if you have a movie that still hits you in the feels, I mean, I've been honest. The first, 25 minutes of Saving Private Ryan, the Normandy Beach, I was weeping in the theater. I was weeping in the theater. I don't know if I've talked about it on YouTube. I do not remember exactly how many siblings there were on my grandmother's side, but only 2 men came home from the war in my family. The whole family on both sides almost were wiped out. So my grandfather came home. Obviously, I'm here. and I have one uncle on my grandmother's side. All the rest of the family did not come home. No one came home. So when I watched Normandy Beach and the movie plays out, every war movie I ever saw with my grandfather, every story I ever heard, all of that played out in my head, and I'm there in the theater, openly weeping. And to this day, tear up every single time, try to fight it back. So I
Just
get
can't
it.
do it.
A movie that you connect with, it's done something right. And I think that, man, if the filmmakers were here and they heard your story, Ironcaster, I think that would be a feather in their cap as something that we were trying to go from that, because that meant that we conveyed that relationship in its most honest, genuine way.
And the funny thing is, I oftentimes I'll always kind of carry a handkerchief because a little bit of that was it the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where's your towel?
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, I'll just kind of always, it's like not a bad idea. I'm gonna hold on to a handkerchief. I'll just kind of keep one. And this is like the first time I actually had to reach in the pocket and pull that thing out.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
Chris Persia's fault.
Yeah.
Chris Persia's fault. Hashtag Persia's fault. Blame Persia. Wayne is here. Hey, brother. Glad you're hanging out and doing well with us, my friend. Always great to see you. Thank you for everything. Yeah. So let's kind of turn the corner a little bit on the film. Get some of your thoughts, grades, different things on Greystoke.
So while it's obviously not a one-to-one adaptation of the novel or anything, it is taking the source material into its own way. Tarzan's one of these characters that's sort of so graduated beyond just being just the story into sort of this pillar of pop culture that so many ways and iterations we've seen this idea taken and brought out. We've seen, obviously George of the Jungle is an obvious one. We've seen, the King Kong in a way is also kind of in that same idea, like our fascination with gorillas and apes and ape men. The fact that, maybe we'll look at them and say, we're not so far removed from them. So what happens when you take the ape out of the jungle? So this movie going in, trying to really kind of go into the idea of this, ape man brought out of the jungle in this attempt to really go and explore this idea. I think there's a lot of potential in it. There's some elements I wish we would have gotten a little more focus on, a little more time seeing that change rather than he's just good at mimicking. I would have liked to see a bit more of that. The emotional weight is the emotional impact of the elements with the grandfather is something I'm not going to be forgetting anytime soon. So kind of putting that aside, I think overall it's a solid 7.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think it has a lot of promise. Christopher Lambert is an absolute delight in this film. The actor playing the grandfather absolutely deserves his Academy Award. Like I'm certainly gonna be vouching for him on that one.
Yeah, 100%. Hashtag Persia's fault or hashtag blame Persia for sure. Pat's going back to old school reference here. Private Ryan, they had to stop the opening night, walk out an old guy who was shaking. They restarted the movie. Yeah, I saw it at a theater opening day, early show, very sparse, maybe 24 people, by myself, crying. I was a train wreck. Hey Jacob, hey brother, hope you're doing well, my friend. Jay from across the pond, hey brother, hope you're doing well as well. So, did I miss anything else? There are lots of folks saying hey and howdies. Okay, good. Yeah, I think that I agree with you. Did you see what I saw about the 2 hour and 40-minute cut? That was actually like the director had commented that there was his original, because it was a 3-hour version. It got cut down, and his ideal version was 2 hours and 40 minutes long, more violent, a lot more about the jungle. I think it was a better of what his vision was. The studio had to have a PG, obviously had to cut it down. But I think with you, what you were saying was 100% where we're at. It's probably one of the better adaptations from the literary source material that we've ever gotten. I don't know all the source material. I don't know all the iterations of Tarzan. I think Matt even made mention of some of the silent film era, like there's some of the early stuff was done.
I would have liked to have. Would have liked. I mean, it's not trying to be the literary adaptation of the novel, so it just it's able to go and explore that and go off and tell.
It almost sounds like it's the first film of like it could be more films. Like to see him as like, okay, now he's in the jungle. Let's just say film number 2 would be Jane can't live without him, and then she goes there, and it's about he's having different struggles in the jungle, but she's coerced people to take her back there, but maybe they don't know that she's going to end up staying there because he has to end up with Jane in the jungle. Like that has to be part of the transition. But I could see another film getting into at least some action, but the problem is, what else do you do? So I don't know. The film is definitely more of a drama and a heavy film than it is an action film. So I think that is part of, I think if you read criticisms, that's probably the hardest criticism. People have the wrong perspective of the film.
Well, supposedly there is an alternate ending where Jane goes to be with him in the jungle. Though I think given where this movie ends off, it has a potential to tell a story where the son of Tarzan, grows up and he winds up just being kind of like his father. He's a little more wild. It's where Jane is back in England trying to raise him, but there's too much of his father in him.
Oh, do you know? Do you not know what Tarzan's son's name is?
No, actually, I don't.
They have so they actually live in the jungle. So he has cheetah, the chimpanzees. He has an elephant. It's all their son is. His name is Boy. Boy, I kid you not, Boy. It's fantastic. So, but I mean, in the traditional Johnny Weissmuller, so he's always wrestling crocodiles. He's saving Boy and cheetah. There's always shenanigans from a tribe or some hunters, things like that. So it's more like just living in the jungle, trials and tribulations of how difficult life would be in the jungle, with maybe some sort of existential threat that's kind of arising of this week or this movie or whatever they may be. So anyway, yeah.
I feel like with the 3-hour cut, to kind of touch on Shadow Complex's comment there, it's just the idea that with a 3-hour cut, you could have the first hour being Tarzan in the jungle, being Tarzan. The second hour could be that acclimation into civilization. And then we have the third act where it all falls apart and he realizes he's better off in the jungle. That is his home, not this world of man.
Right, I agree. Dempsey stopped in. Hey, brother. Hope you're doing all right. Dwayne's explaining that my friend got the press kit on the day Johnny Weissmuller died. Wow, weird coincidence. Ooh, yeah, that would be weird. Sturgis in T-minus 20. All right. There really wasn't enough of the first jungle half to balance the civilized. Yeah, that's the part that got cut, Shadow Complex. Totally agree with you. I think that's what the director's mostly disappointed about, was they wish they cut a lot more of that out, but they cut it out because it was pretty violent. Right. So I think we probably saw a little bit more brutality, maybe more of the fight with the panther, maybe the apes being cannibals and different things that they do. So maybe even, I don't know. So,
well, I mean,
go ahead.
We could have got a bit more with like the ape we had dissected on the at the British Museum. That we could have got a bit more with that ape in the cut stuff for talking about how violent it is.
Yeah, and I thought the editing in those sequences were, I don't want to say poorly done, but I think they could have been edited a little differently to create more of that visceral, chaotic response from the audience. It just seems like it almost feels too much like a walking tour. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like the trauma that Tarzan actually would be experiencing, because he seems very uncomfortable, like just the butterfly part. And that's not really resonating with the audience. Then you have the dissected chimp and you're like, okay, but there were no real close-ups of him. He didn't really have, other than just like backing away type moments, there wasn't a lot of sort of like portrayal of the emotional conflict he was getting into.
He felt more disturbed in many ways when he saw like the dodo.
Yeah, that was a shot that was like, he's very uncomfortable, but we've not been given any context on why the dodo would bother him, because the dodo would have been extinct long before his time in the jungle.
Yeah.
The other thing too was when he saves the chimp from the lab cage, who's his father. He's running off with this chimp, yelling at people to get away. Well, I don't know why he's not yelling that he's my father. Like, I think it would have done better for not just the audience, but also for the people, like, because Jane would have then also had an emotional response, because she'd be like, wait a minute, that's not just some random ape. My boyfriend / fiance isn't acting like a crazy person. That's actually his father ape. Everybody needs to calm down for a minute. There's none of that. So then it becomes like the King Kong response in the tree scene instead of how it was. Like, I'm not trying to shortchange it, because obviously it's an extension of what happened with the grandfather passing. But I think it could have even been more impactful with a couple of little tweaks like there.
Well, and then to even take it further, you then have Charles being the one to either take the shot or tell the guard to then take the shot.
Right. Well, and they put down their arms to not do it, and he shoots them anyway. That would have been basically like Gaston, right? It's like Beauty and the Beast. He does it anyway, right?
And that would have been a great point to really push up of Tarzan, talk about, playing up this idea of their civilization isn't so great. They're no different.
Yeah. Right. Yes. When I grew up on old black and white, Tarzan used to air on Sunday mornings in the UK. Yeah, totally agree with me too. Me too. I don't know if it's 100% agree with the fandom consensus. The first ever movie from 1918, the most accurate adaptation. It adapts like half the book. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know. Makes sense. It's free on YouTube. By the way, this is free on YouTube as well. So if you want to go over to YouTube, just type in the Greystoke stuff. You can just hit watch later if you want, but it's there with ads. It's free right now with ads on YouTube. I saw that pop up. I was searching for Greystoke stuff, and it was like the full movie is there with ads. I was like, oh, cool. That's good to know. I tried to revert to make sure that came up, and I'm glad we did. So my assessment's pretty similar to yours. Your expectations matter a lot. Like if you're expecting Tarzan, like the cartoon, or you're expecting action and him fighting crocodiles, whatever, this movie is going to be dramatically boring and totally upset you. This is a much more of a heavy-handed period piece about can we overcome our internal animal and our animal instincts, our upbringing, nature versus nurture. There's a ton of layers to the film like this that are there. I think as far as the ape effects and things like that were great for their time. I thought all of that was fine. I agree about your assessment with the mimicking thing. 100% agree with that. I have a weird love-hate with the Andy McDowell thing because I know they dubbed it. If I didn't know they dubbed it, I think it would have been fine. The fact that they dubbed it, I'm like, it bothers me because I don't know why we dubbed it. I don't think that voice change is so significant that it was worthy of a dub. So I feel like it was just a bizarre thing that happened. I don't know why that's there.
And I think they did want to try to go this route with the film because the whole thing about Tarzan and the jungle and the apes, in many ways, that traditional style had been overdone and done to death. They wanted to try to take a different approach with this film.
Okay. All right. My last thing I definitely wanted to do. Nope, It's not letting me. I'm gonna close all my windows. I'm gonna try to do my giveaway membership thing here, guys. So stay tuned if you are not a member, because hopefully it will automatically do that. So while I pull that up, Ironcaster, let's plug anything else you got going on this week. Want to get to real quick?
Yeah. So here about an hour, so I'll be on with the T-shirt historian for our little midweek in geek to probably talk about some of the Wizards of the Coast stuff, and yet again the wheelchairs and Dungeons and Dragons, because we haven't had that discussion this week.
I tell you what, I'm sort of like never. It never ceases to amaze me as some of like the half-wit nonsense that comes out of some of these companies right now. So there we go. 5 memberships for me. YouTube does let us give away 10 a month. There's 5 more thrown out there. This went to Lord Thoth, Shield Wall of Dragons. Hey, Matt Cave Gaming, Ironcaster. Who is that guy? What's he doing getting gifts? Squeaky Mouse. All right. She was with us the last 2 weeks. So great to see everybody be members. Awesome to have you guys here as well. There's a Chris Persia throwing that link right there for you guys to make sure you are part of that. Get over there to T-shirt. Also, this guy's been doing some cool content on Mondays. He's doing stuff with T-shirt on Saturday as well, stuff like that. So make sure you are subscribed to Ironcaster to connect to all that.
So Monday nights on my channel, I'm doing the Mech Pit chat where we're talking about all kinds of big robot stuff, including a news of the week that kind of pops up with Gundam, Transformers, Robotech, Macross, just anything with that, all that kind of cool stuff. Like, hey, there's something new with Power Rangers. Let's talk about this for a few minutes.
Very cool. No, I agree. I think this is definitely in your wheelhouse. I'm so proud of you and happy that it's going well for you. Dwayne, yeah, it sounds like my childhood. Now, my mom was probably the one that was like the target audience for those Weiss Miller and TV shows and things like that. So for me, it was like a carryover. I've just grown up on it. It was always like, just that's it. They're out there. So yeah, Tarzan is kind of a cool IP, and I love your concept. We talked about it a little bit. But now that I've been chewing on it a little bit more, I think it'd be fun as we progress to find a week where we could do favorite iterations of, kind of like the way we did Godzilla a little bit last year, and we may do more. We're definitely gonna do more Godzilla again, but I think differently of like your favorite version of Robin Hood or favorite version of Sherlock Holmes, things like that, or maybe even getting into some I don't want to say IPs, but classical figures that really haven't manifested. Like I've always wanted to do a project. I always write stories where I have question marks for this type of character. I always think about character like Dorian Gray or something like that, where you feel like they don't really, Captain Nemo's been kind of like done once. Bluebeard, right? You always feel like there's like things that just aren't. They never take off, which is fine because we have the rest of our lives to find out there's some creative person to grab onto one of those. So,
and I mean, we also did do that last year with like Dungeons and Dragons briefly.
True, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, we had a really great D&D conversation about that. So, Dempsey says D&D vet perspective. Several spinal damage should be a wish or miracle level of magic to heal. Okay.
It's so hard to justify, wheelchairs, combat wheelchairs, delving into dungeons to fight goblins and skeletons when a cleric can just cast a cure wound spell.
Only a few minutes on Power Rangers. Amy Jo deserves an hour. Chris Perry. Hashtag
we may have
play
to
Persia. Yes. No, I think that's great. I think it's a good point. I think we could even. I mean, we did the King Kong a little bit last year, so I'm not sure we'll do Kong, but we could definitely come up with about 6 or 7 others that we could definitely. This is part of the growth and us enjoying each other's content. And I know Loki's under the weather, and I really wish we had him here as well to kind of chime in about Tarzan, because I'm sure as we all have had experience. It's it's kind of like the thing too, where I bet people who've not. I met even the kids not seeing Tarzan would know Tarzan. Like, what I mean? It's like Tarzan's one of those where it's kind of like transcended pop culture to just sort of kind of be something that we know, right? It's just something you kind of know.
He's a character that's been absorbed into the cultural zeitgeist, where so many of the telltale elements of the character become these sort of staples of fantasy.
Yeah.
And just one last little thought I happen to have here as we're kind of wrapping up. I think it's kind of funny that we kind of pitted this with Conan from last week, as in a way, in some ways, these barbaric, animalistic individuals on the outside of society as sort of this, poo-pooing of what is civilization.
Now, I think this is also why I've been on such a buzz about the Titan comics, because they got away from the stranglehold of what Marvel had people doing. So when you get into the Titan comics, you're seeing him actually be barbaric. You're seeing him actually. I mean, there's literally a sequence or two that are like, if you like the movies, you're going to be, this is going to be your kind of sequence, right? Because it gets more rated R, it gets more hardcore, it gets a lot more edgy, and maybe these are not characters for everyone. But they like you said, they've transcended into the culture. Like I think like Sherlock Holmes for sure, right? I mean, I think you could just survey people and they're like, yeah, I just don't know who Sherlock Holmes is. There'd be certain stereotypes that people might have with Tarzan, as far as like the loincloth and apes, or talks to apes, and he has a girlfriend named Jane. They may not know a whole lot, but they envision, living in a jungle and action and whatever. And Greystoke is more like his origin story. It's like more of like us trying to take all of what Burroughs did, squeeze it into a 2-hour film, and let you now have a Tarzan world or your imagination play. So I think this is it's been fun to do that.
I would even say, in many ways, James Bond is another character that's sort of been able to do that because he's become so iconic, so larger than life.
Yeah, but he has like 20 movies or something. That's a little different. Like
True,
those are not even like. I mean,
but
every
that's
generation
sort of the
has had
point,
a
though.
Bond. I mean, every generation has had a Bond. Every generation hasn't had a good Tarzan. Yeah,
but that's sort of the point, though, is that obviously Robin Hood's another example of one of those characters. But what I'm talking about is he's been around so long. He's been able to work his way into the zeitgeist to where there are a lot of copycat characters of these figures, but they've been able to sort of transcend having seen the movies to be able to get the character.
Okay. All right.
I bet you could probably walk up to anyone on the streets and ask, have they heard me, Tarzan, you, Jane before? Right. Without having seen a Tarzan movie.
Right. They're having fun with your, like they're melding your two worlds together with a Tarzan D&D build. Tarzan would be barbarian / ranger build with high strength and dexterity and low intelligence wisdom. Ron Eli reference, very, very, very good. Like that, Dwayne. Thank you so much. Old TV show for sure. DJ Ryan G is laughing at the D&D build stuff there for sure. Maybe this will get a 50th anniversary extended cut. That would be great if they did. There was no one that made mention of it existing. That's my only hesitation to really bring it up was like the director makes comments about it, but not that they have it. So I don't know what we'll get, but that's what I would expect. I would love that. This is again, the marketing genius that is not actually present in Hollywood is they should be looking at the 50th. I mean, I guess you could do it on the 40th anniversary because you got to make money today. The director's cut, just drop a director's cut. GREYSTOKE Tarzan 4K director's cut, original version, theatrical versions, alternate endings, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll see.
I mean, heck, you could probably even go ahead and do like some sort of Tarzan compilation where anyone who's got a couple of different Tarzan movies over the years with a few of the public domain versions, and just kind of have this like 5-movie Tarzan pack. It's a good time.
Yeah, Tarzan mania for sure. So, well, guys, thanks for Ironcaster for hanging out, enjoying something for the first time again. Here we are, face to face with Halo again. So next week will be our big Halo wrap up. I've watched, I believe it's episode 5. I've watched into episode 6. And let's just say what they were doing with Strawberry Spartan had me so upset that I turned it off and I haven't been back. So I will have to endure between now and then the rest of Halo, which will be complete by the time we do our show next week. It's rough.
I got a little confession to make.
Okay.
I haven't watched any more of this Halo since, so I have to apparently marathon all these episodes.
No. I didn't expect to. I ended up with okay. You weren't here. I don't think you caught the story. Maybe I just told Loki. I don't know. I actually kind of had insomnia. I was up at about 3 to 4 in the morning. Couldn't go back to sleep. I read a couple comic books, whatever. I'm like, I got to get a couple more hours sleep in. I didn't need to be up until like 5 or 6 that day or whatever it was. And I just turned Halo on. Out. I was gone. So, Pops was off last week. Loki this week. Ironcaster next week. No, Ironcaster will be here. I could have been here, but there was a reason not being here. I think I briefly talked about it earlier in the show. Hit rewind if you missed it. Yeah, Loki is under the weather. Please keep him in your thoughts for sure. So, the director, GREYSTOKE, said, "Yeah, I don't know. There's several folks that were involved with this film. No, I wouldn't expect him to be involved, but the studio. I mean." Again, we're fans, so we would go look. He wanted this done. Let's just do that and call it this. Let's do this. But I don't know. We'll see.
I have to imagine there's probably not even a work cut of that around anymore, especially considering this is 40. This movie's 40 years old.
Yeah, 40 years old. Yeah.
And if that footage even still exists.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, folks, listen, next week we'll be doing Halo, and we will get some Clockwork Orange treatment on Loki and get his take on things. I got to be honest, I feel like I need some electric shock as well because it's bad. It's been rough. So we'll see how it wraps up. I'm going to give it a shake. I mean, I can't imagine them turning it around for me, but hey, you never know. And And then after that, I don't think we have anything solid. So we will see what will be in the works. We'll talk hard group. We'll talk amongst ourselves. Maybe there'll be another hashtag blame Persia, which, by the way, isn't really a blame Persia. It's a credit Persia because this guy had never seen the movie before. How cool is that? Didn't know that. I haven't watched this movie at least in 30 years, probably college. So
you never know what movie I was gonna find out that I've never seen. Maybe we'll have to do the big old checklist of, all right, Ironcaster, have you seen this movie?
Well, and yet Talk Hard has its own. Talk Hard has its own feel because we know we have one or two things that are sort of out there that we want to do something special with, but they may not be Talk Hard chance shows, but we definitely need to do something there. But yeah, no, we'll see what happens, folks. And again, if you guys have suggestions, feel free to throw those out there in our comments. Let us know. But listen, guys, check out his show, Later Than a T-Shirt. Check out his channel. All stuff going on with him. I can't thank you guys enough. See you guys next Tuesday. We'll be talking hard. And this is what we're going to be thinking about when we see Loki doing Halo. Talk to you guys then.
He's losing his mind. And I'm reaping all the benefits. He's losing his mind. And I'm reaping all the benefits.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to